Some years ago, in an underground bunker filled with cigarette smoke and questionable lighting, the game's developers at Ubisoft schemed for a way to get their piece of the apple and crab salad flavored pie of online competitive multiplayer. Rather than go the usual route of shooting back and forth while shouting racial slurs, they decided that they wanted to push for something more original: swordplay. Knights are an obvious choice, said one executive. The kids on the internet machine love knights. What if we added pirates and ninjas, asked another. Too obvious. Instead, let's go with Vikings and samurai. And on that day, For Honor was born. Knights versus Vikings versus samurai. Or as I like to call it, the Internet, the game. And just like the internet itself, it's not without problems. But if you're tired of the usual run-and-gun fare and looking for something that requires a little more patience, For Honor might not be a bad place to start. I think one of the most impressive aspects of For Honor is also the most disappointing. It takes itself damn seriously. Which is a little odd. You've got three factions from vastly different time periods battling it out over a fictional plot of land. Honestly, it's not terribly well explained. The samurai never once utter the word Japan, nor is there any mention of the Scandinavian countries by the Vikings. The knights don't mention England or France or anything, but that's probably just as well, considering about half of them are clearly American.
Members of an ancient order, fallen into dust.
And there's nothing wrong with that. With taking known cultures and putting them in a fictional environment to raise hell, I mean. Nothing wrong with it in the slightest, but you have to admit, it's sort of a silly idea. It'd be like a show where Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny go to war against each other, only to be H-bombed by Ren and Stimpy, because we all know that Ren and Stimpy would be OP as hell. And stranger combinations of franchises have certainly happened in the past. It just feels like a missed opportunity for some more tongue-in-cheek attitude. That seriousness permeates everything, including the single-player campaign, which spawns the same forgettable war is hell sort of rhetoric that you see in your Call of Duty campaigns. Not that I want to knock the single-player too much. If anything, it's a pretty terrific introduction to the world and the combat style. Each faction has its own campaign, and over the course of a 6 to 8 hour experience, you'll play each one of their different heroes and learn a lot about how they control and probably which ones you're going to do the best with. It's essentially a super extended tutorial to get you ready for the real meat and challenge of the game, running from opponents when you're outnumbered. But more on that later. For Honor is gorgeous, that much is obvious. The landscapes and regions you inhabit are beautifully detailed, if you bother taking the time to slow down and notice them. The character models and the many, many different weapons and pieces of armor that you can unlock make customizing your experience a hell of a lot of fun. Different symbols, color schemes, and patterns unlock as you progress, and creating your own coat of arms and distinct style has always been one of my favorite parts of games like these. If there's one mode that truly showcases what For Honor has to offer, it's the dual 1v1 mode. The combat style throughout the game is very much based around blocking and getting around your opponent's defense, and when you're facing off against a single player, the tension is higher than a drag queen at Coachella. You have 3 directions to attack and block from, and learning the patterns of your opponent is key to coming out on top. This works best with a one-on-one match because there's a level of focus there. There's no distraction. The best duels I've played have almost been like chess matches, taking your time and really focusing on when and where to strike. It is so damn much fun. On the other side to this, the 4v4 Dominion mode feels like it should be the most fun, but ends up leaving something to be desired. In this mode, you and 3 other players take on a team of 4 other heroes as your respective armies attempt to wrest control of a central location on the map. In theory, it's a terrific idea. You've got hordes of disposable enemies to mow through in a sort of Dynasty Warriors fashion, all while keeping an eye out for the far more dangerous player characters as you attempt to claim and hold different key areas. But just like an experimental 3-way with your girlfriend's roommate, the chance for everything to turn into an exhausting shit show is always there. Opponents run as fast as they can to more crowded areas to avoid fights, tearing through hordes of faceless enemies can quickly become a chore, and you'll find yourself ganged up on by multiple heroes in a damn hurry. It takes the careful, deliberate style of combat that's so excellent in one-on-one fights, and turns it into a bit of a mess, which can be fun, but it got really tedious for me after a while, because it doesn't feel like that's what the combat system was designed for. With fewer players and a focus on dueling, For Honor feels polished and engaging. With a crowd of screaming soldiers and hastily retreating opponents, it's much harder to take advantage of that patient, high-tension gameplay. It isn't impossible. With the right opponents, every mode in For Honor has the potential for genuine fun. It's just like hanging out with theater majors. The more you add to the mix, the bigger chance for the evening to end with you leaving your house disgusted and muttering incoherently about Arthur Miller. And finding those players is going to be the real key as to whether or not For Honor will be around this time next year. Because just like the seriousness with which it takes itself, For Honor's combat style is both its strongest aspect and its weakness. Strongest because there really aren't a lot of games like this one out there, at least on this scale. And weakness for the same reason. This game is far more methodical to be played well, which is true of other multiplayer games, but lord, you wouldn't know that by playing them. There's a really quick reality check that occurs when you play For Honor for the first time. That button mashing just isn't going to cut it. And that might keep a lot of the casual players away, which shouldn't be a problem. There are plenty of game publishers out there who wouldn't mind having a smaller but completely dedicated fan base. However, something tells me that Ubisoft is not one of those publishers. Christ, a week into the game's release, and they're already offering a ton of microtransactions, and that's not even mentioning the Season Pass. And they're not even hosting their own servers for this. I haven't run into a lot of problems with the P2P multiplayer style, but I've certainly read a lot of complaints from a lot of other players. Ubisoft, come on. You're charging $60 for the game, $30 for the Season Pass, and whatever else you're making on microtransactions. Could you spring for a private server, please? There have been rumblings about Ubisoft taking For Honor into the realm of esports, and I seriously hope that they do. If only because the market is glutted with first-person shooters and MOBAs, and this sort of game could be a real breath of fresh air. How cool would it be to see esports teams with dueling specialists, or just a guy whose entire job is to sit at the match and shout, "For Honor!" incessantly until the other team goes home or strangles him with their shoelaces. Overall, if you're interested in a game that requires patience and precision, For Honor could scratch just the right itch. I genuinely enjoyed my time with it, and would love to see it evolve. Who knows? If it does well enough, we might even get a fourth faction to fight alongside. So we've got Knights, Vikings, and Samurai. What would be the next one? Maybe Zulus? Or Musketeers? Or, and hear me out on this one, Velociraptors. Just a big damn army of lizards with a big claw on their foot. Big claw foot army. That's what we could call it. Well, a guy can dream.
If Daddy don't sink a little drinky, Daddy gets sad and blue. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky